Well, we are live now. Sorry about that. That took me a second to kind of get everything sorted out. I'm so happy you guys are here. I feel like we can just hang out. um, I don't know if you guys saw it in the text for chat channel. I said that I'm reserving the right to say no comment to questions because I had a few questions that people sent me, but they're like plot things. Like even though they're not the major plot points, I think everybody figures out that I'm not going to answer that. Um, there's plot stuff in it, and even though some of them they're like completely off base or whatever, I feel like if I try to answer, I'm going to end up still giving spoilers. So if I can't see a way to answer the question without reducing the the options of what might occur, then I'm just going to say no comment. So I'm really sorry because I know we have two books ending and people are getting antsy about stuff. But so yeah, so the
Yeah.
thing that I wanted to say was if I say no comment, it doesn't mean because when I hear that from people like in the media, I'm like, oh yeah, right. That just means that it's true, you know. But it won't. There's certain times that I'm gonna say it or not answer a question, even though it's not what you think. And it's just because I can't kind of qualify it without giving spoilers, or there's maybe only two or three options anyway. So if I say no to one, then it's something else, and
Mm.
I don't want to reduce tension. I don't
I
I also don't want to increase anxiety, but but I don't want to reduce tension for the questions. So that's our rules of engagement for today.
I'm
Um,
sure you'll not answer some of mine then.
well, it depends. I'm actually really scared I'm going to give something away by accident.
No,
Because I can't talk
I
to
understand.
anybody about any of this stuff, the only person I talk to is my husband. And every so often, I'll just make a like passing comment about something, and he's like, "You got to make sure you don't just say that to people." Because I forget, I don't always remember exactly where you are in the story. So sometimes, because there's things that kind of circle back around, I've had
Hmm.
comments where people have commented on something and I think the material's up to a certain place. So I'm like, oh no, such and such is just this and that. And they're like, wait, where are they? And I'm like, because we're not actually there and I've gotten it wrong. So I might have to check in with you guys once in a while to see where we're actually at with certain things because the material that you're reading, most of it I wrote, I'm going to say 3 weeks ago. 3 or 4 weeks ago. I had Queen finished at the end of last week, I think it was, and I had been working on it almost solidly for a month at that point.
Mm.
So I'm still like 100 chapters ahead of you guys, or close to it. Um, so yeah, I'm just gonna have to be really careful. I'm gonna have to try and make sure I don't say anything by accident. If I do, the video won't be going up on YouTube, and y'all have to keep your mouth shut. Anyway, so we have Queen finishing on the 10th of May and Prince finishing on the 30th of April. And the reason I pushed Prince or brought Prince back was because I originally had thought I wasn't going to get a chance to write it until next month or until later in April, which was why I said that the updates were going to come back on the 20th. Because I thought I was going to write that week and do the updates for those 2 weeks and then write to the end and put them all in May. But I was a lot closer to the end than I thought. And when I sat down and actually went through the outline, I went, oh, like I could do this in less than a week. So I ended up I've been hanging on by my claws on Alpha, keeping 2 chapters a day. Um, and finished Prince on Friday afternoon. And I sat there and I went, why make them wait? Why do, 2 or 3 weeks of still these just couple chapters a week and then throw it all in May? Why not just let's have a party this month? Um, so you'll get chapters every day on Prince now. In the last 3 days, there'll be two chapter days, and then I think it's a 5 or 6 chapter day at the end. So I hope you like it, because I did not see that coming. I mean, I've known the end of that for a long time, but I didn't realize how close to it I was. Um, so we're gonna have Prince and Queen both done uh, by a month from today, which is kind of cool and scary at the same time. But that also means that around this time next month, I'll be putting out a new book or starting a new book. I don't know exactly when that's going to be yet, but it'll be sometime, I think, in the first couple weeks of May. Um, so, yeah, lots of exciting stuff happening, or at least exciting for me. Um, and I also wanted to let you guys know that I have the rights for my two traditionally published books finally came back to me last month, and I had hoped to get them up on Amazon in time for April. But because I was finishing Queen and it took longer than I thought, I just didn't end up getting time to do it because I have to redo covers and all kinds of stuff I can't use. I can use the manuscript, but I can't use any of their design. I can't use their title, stuff like that. Um, so I'll have a couple books on Amazon hopefully by the end of April. Um, and I'm planning, I believe Alpha will complete, I'm going to say 2 or 3 months from now, because I'm apparently not good at judging these things. So I'm guessing June, but possibly July. We'll see. So yeah, so there's a whole transition going on right now, but there'll be lots of
Wow.
fun stuff and new projects that I'm excited about. Um, so yeah, so that's where things are at for me. I've only got a couple hours today, so I've got a couple questions from people that couldn't be here, although Sravantha, you're here, and I have questions from you. Um,
Yeah. So,
and
uh,
what I thought we'll do, what I told Janelle in the chat, because I know most people's questions are probably going to be about Beast and Anima and Queen and all of that, I want to put that at the end just so that I can just because otherwise if we get started in that we probably never get to the to the other books. That's what's happened in the past. So I'm just going to answer a couple quick questions, and if you guys have any questions about the other books, um, we'll throw them in there. But otherwise, then we'll move on to the Beast stuff. Um, so Randy, I think this was one of your questions. I thought it was a really good one. It was just a general question about my book. She asks, "Is it a struggle for you to put your favorite characters through hardships?"
hmm,
Um,
yeah.
which I know all of the characters are in those places right now. Um, so the answer is actually yes, but in a different way than I think it is for you guys. Because for me, I always know where it's going or where it's leading to and how it's going to get there. So for me, watching, or writing them in a really difficult place doesn't have the same fear involved. Like, I don't have to sit there and go, I wonder what's going to happen, because I already know before I write it. But what ends up happening, or what's happened for me at least, with these books, because I spend so much time with the characters, they start to feel emotionally like real people to me. So even though um, I know what's going to happen, I have to kind of experience the emotions with them, because that's the only way to kind of do it justice. Like, I have to put myself in positions of when did I feel those kinds of feelings, even if I haven't been in that situation. What's the closest
Mm.
situation? Where's the closest part in my life where I've felt that way, or I've been alongside somebody who's experiencing that kind of grief or that kind of anger or whatever. And so writing those scenes can be very emotional because I have to kind of revisit my own feelings. But also, what's happened for me with the Queen ending in particular, that was kind of a shock. I had been thinking through the details of that and planning it in my head and making notes and all that kind of stuff since, well, I knew the ending, I'm going to say by the end of January, I knew the basic structure of the ending. And definitely in February, like February, I was like deep in it mentally. So what I do is like I write all day and then I usually make dinner or whatever. And while I'm cooking, I have my playlist running and I have my notebook there. And so I'll be making notes or envisioning things and trying to figure out how scenes are going to play out and stuff like that. And what happened for me with Queen was I think I'd been spending so long in those scenes and so much time figuring out sort of the intricacies of the plot and the different things that were going to happen to different characters and stuff that when it finally came time to write them, I had almost already gone through the emotional journey of it. And when I first was writing the really intense scenes, I wasn't feeling them as much as I normally feel them. And it was scaring me because I was like, am I not getting there? Like, am I not delivering? Because normally I feel what they're feeling while I'm writing it. And I wasn't feeling it very much. I was feeling a bit, but I wasn't really getting there. And that scared me. Well, then, then the thing that I hadn't planned as much was once you have these big climactic scenes happen, you have to have the characters' reactions to them, right? So you have this big plot point unfold. Well, then everybody that's there now has to relay how they're feeling, how it's affected them, what's happened to them in the course of that, all of that kind of stuff. And what I found with Queen was writing the actual plot didn't hit me too hard. But when I came in to the scenes afterwards where everybody's reacting, it was like it floored me. Like it really took me off guard because I had been kind of emotionally shut down a little bit and it just hit me really hard. And so um, there's only one person who knows the end of the book. I ended up having a friend that has read for me in the past and knows the characters. And I was like, I need somebody to read this and make sure that I got there, that I like brought the reader with me because I was really uncertain about it. Um, but I think we got there, so I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys to read it. But yeah, it's different with every book because it's different issues. But I get emotionally hit by the experience of writing them for where it takes me, but I don't get the fear and anxiety about it because I know where it's going and I know how it's ending and I know where everything's leading. But there's definitely days like I had my heart rate up quite a bit writing the end of Queen, especially. And there was a few scenes in Prince where things got emotional in ways that I didn't sort of anticipate. So, because I didn't give as much thought to that one, um, because I didn't realize I was going to be writing it so soon. So I knew, but I had to do all my plotting and everything and then write it right away. I didn't have sort of weeks to sit with it like I did with Queen. Did anybody have any questions about sort of in that vein of just the generic sort of writing or the process or anything like that? Okay. So the other questions that I had, um, there was a specific question that I was asked about alpha, but because it kind of it's a spoiler, like the question is a spoiler. I'm not gonna say it exactly, but it was basically, are we ever gonna find out what happened in this one particular spot? Something that happened between Sasha and the humans in Alpha. So I just want you to know, yes, hopefully with all of the books, any of those sort of detail things where something happens and the character is unaware or doesn't know why, hopefully by the end of the story, you get those answers. There's every chance with the books as big as they are that I'm going to miss something. Um, I know with this, I think it was one of your questions, Travanthi. I know with this one, the answer is absolutely yes, because it actually comes up as part of the plot later. But if you guys are getting close to the end of Queen and you feel like there's still details that we haven't sort of nailed down, you are welcome always to contact me and just ask me, because we're going to do some celebration stuff at the end. And if there's anything that I didn't get into the material, I'm more than happy once the ending's done and out there. I'm more than happy to answer those questions. So hopefully they're all going to be answered anyway. But if you do hit anything as you read that you want to make sure you know, please feel free to send it to me over the next few weeks and I'll kind of collect those together. Janelle, did you have any questions about Alpha?
Yeah, but now I'm afraid to ask them because I don't know if I'll spoil anything.
Um, well, let's see. Let's see who's here. Is anybody here either not read Alpha at all or not sort of towards the end? Is your stuff from the privilege chapters, Janelle?
Yeah, yeah, I think so because I have the highest privilege, so
Okay.
um, you know, I I'm afraid to ask it.
What you can do if you want, you can send them to me in a private message and I'll take a look and I'll see if there's any way that I can uh, move around them or maybe answer them for you. The thing I don't want to do, because we are actually getting close to some really major plot points with Alpha,
Okay.
there's some stuff going on there that's going to get big pretty soon. Um, so the thing I don't want to do is if people are still in the normal chapters and they haven't got that far, I don't want
Hmm.
to kind of give them a clue about what's. I'm trying to. I don't remember what the
So I
normal.
don't even know how far in it I am compared to other readers.
So I think yesterday, um, yeah. So yesterday the
Yesterday was
normal
the
chapters
Access
got up
meeting.
to Sasha was back
Hmm.
and had been organizing some stuff and Zev was taking her away. Um,
Okay, well then maybe one question will be okay.
okay, throw it at me.
Will we find out what happened to the lost people like Patty and the other girls in the gateway
Yes,
eventually? Okay.
yes, you will.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yes, all of that will come to fruition, or at least information.
Okay, well,
Um,
the other question I have is definitely deeper into the story, so I will ask you privately on that one.
okay, that's cool. So I got asked, which was I thought a really good question, and it actually came out of King of Beasts, um, but it applies to what's going on in Queen as well. And I've had this question before, and I realized I'd never actually addressed it. Um, oh, wait, sorry, was there any questions about Prince?
I did have a couple, but I'm not sure again how far other people are. Oh, wait, no,
There's
I'm
no
only two.
privilege on Prince. There's only
Okay,
the two chapters, so
right.
I can't imagine you're much further than anybody else.
Okay, because, well, I don't know. Um, I think last night's was when um, Philippe was talking to Etten,
Yes.
um, or Eaton, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
and they were having that conversation finally. And
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of feel like everyone's beating a dead horse. Yes, he did a really horrible screw up, but it just feels like everyone's raking him over the coals over it. And it's like, when are they going to finally forgive him and move on? Because he is trying and he's apologizing to everybody. And I want to know if that will stop.
Yes. So
Okay.
that's where all of this is going now. Um, so yeah, he's just been through that process with Aelith, and now he's going through it with Philippe because they hadn't talked one on one. But there's
Right.
also things to come in the towards the ending where everybody's going to get their eyes opened a little bit. So
Okay.
there's going to be some growth on all sides because Eaton has seen which parts of that whole process he was, he maybe didn't handle the best, but he also
Right.
wasn't entirely wrong. Um, so I think he's handling it pretty well, where he's basically willing to take responsibility for his own, like, for how he would maybe do it differently in future.
Right, and I agree because I'm like, okay, you can tell that he's, taking responsibility
Hmm.
and wanting to own his mistakes, but it just seems like everyone is just keep throwing coals at him. It's like, come on, people. He's trying.
Yeah. I think you're probably feeling that way because basically he and Aelith had gotten to that point already
Right.
recently. I think had he already said to her, with the information I had, I wouldn't have done anything differently. Um,
I think maybe. I know
um,
he said that with Philippe.
okay, well maybe that's who I'm thinking of. Anyway, so he's gonna. This is all coming to a close. The Philippe chapters are 2 chapters, I think. I don't know if you got both of them. No, you wouldn't have gotten both of them yesterday. So there'll be one tonight that kind of concludes that conversation,
Okay.
and then they all move on.
Yeah, because I
Um,
know that Borsch isn't really raking him over the coals because he kind of already did before it even
yeah.
happened.
Well, Borsch foresaw that this was going to be an issue.
Yeah.
So the thing that I think to remember with Philippe is that literally his entire life has been committed to Ayla's protection. Like
Hmm.
literally, he has given up everything to do this for her, and willingly. So, and he and Eden had been at a really good place of trust and sort of camaraderie
Yeah,
and
and I'm
and
sure that's why it's stinging so much because he actually did finally trust him.
yes. And so now Philippe's been thrown into this place where he's half um, in doubt, right? Had he
Hmm.
misjudged, and half
Right.
just pissed off
Right.
because
Then,
he had to deal with the fallout. He had to be the one
yeah,
caring
of
for
course.
her when she didn't know what was going on. And so there's kind of a dual thing for Philippe where part of it is legitimate where he's like, you should have been talking to me about this. We should have been doing this together. The irony
Right.
is, I mean, this is just one of the things that I know. Philippe would have done the same thing, but he can't see it. He probably would have talked to, like, if it was reversed and it was about Eaton and Borsch's Eaton's, offsider, he would have
Uh-huh.
talked to Borsch and warned Borsch, but not Eaton. Does that make sense? So that
Yeah.
Borsch was sort of equipped to deal with it when it happened. And I can't remember if I ever get him to actually uh, um, express that. But there's a combination of sort of your blindness that you hit sometimes where you're not really thinking through your own stuff. You're just sort of blaming somebody else.
Right. And
But
it kind
also,
of
Philippe
alluded
kind
to
of
that.
has this inner turmoil thing, like, why didn't you trust me with this? He doesn't make it about himself because he knows it's not about him. But I just know as a character, there's a part of him, sort of that male ego side of him, going, wait a second, you could have talked to me. Like, I could have been a
Uh-huh.
part of this and helped, and this would not have gone the way it did. So,
Yeah. And
that's
I'm sure
partly
that'll
why
come
he's
up.
still so mad.
Yeah. And I'm sure it'll come up with how Philippe was alluding to that he's been there, kind of done that. And he's been the wiser side of it because he's seen what can happen in his own life.
you're
And I
you're
think,
gonna see more as this progresses. You're gonna get more insight on that
right.
side of things and understand where he's coming from.
She, I'm coming to get you.
Oh, okay.
Did you have any other questions about Prince, or did
Just one,
anybody?
but it was minor.
Oh, go for it. It's fine.
Just, if you had any ballpark round number of how many more chapters are left.
I think it's 27. I think. I think
Well,
you've
that,
got you got one a day until Okay, so I need to get the dates right because web novel dates are a day ahead. In America, you'll get one chapter a day up to the 26th. Then the 27th and 28th will each have 2 chapters, and then the 29th will have, it's either 5 or 6, I can't remember. And that will be the end.
it just seems so short.
Well, I think, because what happened for me was, um, in the original sort of path of the story, there was supposed to be a second volume that took the world bigger.
Mm.
So early in the story, there's a lot of world building that was designed to make the second volume feel more fleshed out. But because the book never earned, I just can't keep going with it. And because the ending of the first volume brought a conclusion to all of these issues, I realized I don't actually have to take it. Had the book been super successful, there was a whole new sort of conflict that would have arisen out of this and taken them off, and there would have been a whole thing. But we're not going there. The option is there. If Cherries, the new app that Web Novel is doing, if that takes off and the book finds an audience, I've left myself open with this to be able to continue the story. But kind of like what I did with any of you who've read The Dangerous CEO, I had a second plot for that as well, and ended up not using it because partly because it wasn't earning enough, and partly because the characters had been through so much. I kind of wanted them to be in a happy place and get to stay there instead of throwing them into a whole new conflict. So there's always the option to continue, but like I say, it surprised me when I sat down and I had written Queen for longer because of people getting sick and different things happening. I had written Queen longer than I thought I was going to have to, and that had taken up the days that I would normally work on Prince. Normally, I would have, a couple weeks ago, I would have understood where I was at with the story, because the first day in a new book is always a plotting day where I go in and I am outlining in detail and I'm figuring out where I'm at and what I'm trying to get achieved in the days that I'm doing the book. Um, but because that got pushed out and I didn't do it, which was why you didn't have any chapters for the first couple weeks of April, I didn't sit down with it until I think it was either last Sunday or Monday was when I had some time and I sat down with Prince to figure out where I was at. And when I actually went through the plot line that I had fleshed it out better than I thought. Normally, when I write an ending, I only sort of do the skeleton of it, and then I go in later and sort of outline it in detail so that it's faster to write. And I had done more of the outlining than I realized. So I hadn't realized how close I was to the end, um, which is probably partly why it feels that way, because normally I would have been warning you guys like 2 or 3 months in advance that we were getting towards the end. And I think I dropped the ball on this one because I didn't think I was going to get it ended so quickly. So I think that's partly why it's feeling that way, because I think you're going to see as we go through this that this is a natural conclusion for it. I've not made it end where it wasn't going to end. It's following the story that I always had planned. It's just
Okay.
not then launching into this new arc, which was what I had hoped to do with it. Um,
Now, if it takes off on that other platform, is it just going to be on that platform and not on Web Novel?
no, it'll be on both.
Oh,
Charades
okay.
is part of Web Novel, but what they're effectively doing is taking the top web novel romance content, and putting it on an app specifically for the Western market. So the books that go on there have been curated. Nobody can just go write for Cherries. Anybody can just
Oh,
show up and start writing on web novel anytime they want. So
gotcha.
Cherries, they've kind of selected the stuff that has a proven audience and stuff like that, and the authors that have a proven audience, and they've put it all on there. And there's a lot. I mean, web novel have a ton of content, but it's all the same stuff. So you want to stay with web novel if you're already in web novel, because it benefits you to do that. But yeah, if at least to my knowledge, they're never going to have us go, we'll just start writing for Cherries. If they do, I'll let you guys know. But right now,
Okay.
all Cherries is doing is mirroring web novel, but only for certain books. It's not the whole site, on the female side, the romance side.
And all your books are there?
I believe they all are now. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. Um, well, because I write in the Western style, which actually does not benefit me on web novel. but hopefully will benefit me on chair reads. We'll see. Um, it's all still in beta right now. They're not marketing it yet. It's just there, and they're working out all of the sort of technical side of it right now. But it's supposed to launch in the next month or two. So we'll see. But yeah, if it were to suddenly start making a good following on chair reads and having an audience that wanted more, I would absolutely kick it back off again. Excuse me, in my writing cycle. From now on, I'm never going to do more than 2 books at a time, because it was just too much. I've been digging myself out of this hole I started a year ago for this whole time. So now, hopefully, I get a little bit of my life back. I've been working 7 days a week for the last 9 weeks, I think it was,
Oh,
and it's just too much. But it was to get these books finished so that I could sort of have a clean slate. So now, right now, as of right at this moment, the only book that I have updating in terms of my writing schedule is Alpha, because the other ones are done. But I will have a new one starting um, in the next few weeks. So watch this space.
Exciting. Super
can
Yes.
you tell us
exciting.
which book that is?
What's that?
Or can you tell us which book that is, like the new one that's going to start? Or is it like,
That
a
is
surprise?
that's the Cole book. If you're on Facebook,
Okay.
that's the
Yeah,
Cole
yeah.
book. And what it is the new Spirity competition is starting up sometime in the next month.
And you
Um,
don't
Okay.
know the theme yet?
no, they haven't told us, but the way they do it, which is intentional on their part, is that most books will fit one of the themes. Most of their major tropes will fit one of the themes, and a lot of them will fit more than one. And the way they write the themes, often just by adding an element, if your book doesn't automatically fit, a lot of authors, who've been sort of writing ahead, they can go in and maybe change a side character or something like that, and get it to fit, and which is web novel's intention. They don't want to, what they basically want to do is just make sure that the books aren't niche.
Mm.
They want to make sure that they're stories that have a potential for commercial success. So as long as you can kind of fit within those very wide boundaries, you can do it. I mean, I don't know how many staff members at this point, because I raised this. I had 2 different books, and I was like, I don't know which one's going to fit, and they're not giving us the themes ahead of time. Last year, they gave us the themes 3 months ahead of time so that we could be writing to them before the competition started. This year they haven't, and I think it's because they had such a huge bottleneck last year. It was just a mess behind the scenes. It was a real disaster. So I think they're trying to avoid that, by announcing later and not giving anything. So most authors will wait for the themes, or have to do some work, so they won't have thousands of novels uploaded in 3 days like they did last year.
Oops.
Yeah, it was a real mess. It really was. Um, but we got there. So yeah. So yeah, it's the Cole book, the Demon Slayer book. I'll be bringing out next. But I'm not going to give you more than that yet. Was there any other questions about Prince or non-Beast books?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
It's not for me
All I
anyway.
want to say is, I hope people who are supposed to be punished will be punished at the end of Prince.
My goal is always to have a satisfying ending, but people define punished differently. I'll admit, I'm probably not as ruthless as you guys. Um, but yeah,
We want the queen
in
dead.
my world, I don't know if you've read Dangerous, Cervantes, the CEO book.
Yeah, I
Um,
did. I did.
so my goal is always to see justice done, but because yeah, it we'll just have to wait and see. But yes, I'm never gonna let a villain walk away scot free, or at least I haven't ever yet. We'll
Good.
see. We'll see.
That's
But
all we need to
never
hear.
say never, right? But If something's coming to an actual conclusion, for me, for it to be satisfying, there has to at least be an acknowledgement of the damage people have done. So I'll leave it
Hmm.
at that. Um, so moving on to the Beast books. I have a couple questions. I honestly I don't remember, Savanthy. I know there was one question that you had asked me. I think that I am not going to answer, and I can't remember why because I don't have it in front of me right now. There was something that I felt like I couldn't answer or shouldn't answer. But the couple more that I had, one, like I say, came up in the comments and has come up before. And I thought, you know what, this is a good chance to address this. I've had several readers at different times, either in King or in Queen, in either of the Beast books, just kind of throw out there that they should just blow up the traverses. They should just blow up the portals and then nobody can get through. But the point to make about that is that the portals are not physical locations, they're supernatural locations. So if they were to, for example, just go blow up the cave so that nobody could quote unquote reach the portal can just it would just make itself available. The power that's behind this is invested in having access to people and anima. Um, so it's not going to just go, oh, boulders fell down. Now we can't do that anymore. Even though it's located physically in terms of where they go to access it, the traverse itself is not in that place physically, and it's not accessed according to like a GPS. It's there because that's where it's been put. But if they were to landslide the mountain or something, it would just get moved to wherever people could access it. So the solution to the traverse issue isn't that simple. And I just wanted to put that out there because it keeps coming up and I thought, you know what, I really should have made this clearer back when Reth was educating Elia on these things and everybody was doing their thing. That's something that I should have made clear to people. So that's why. Plus, on top of that, the anima don't have explosive devices. They have some stuff, but it wouldn't be powerful enough to bring down the side of a mountain or anything like that. Um, so it doesn't really occur to them to do that. To be fair, they would be aware of things like creating landslides or digging things out or whatever. The physical blockades and stuff like that. But no, they're not. You're right. Unless they've been to Earth, they're not sitting there going, "Let's get some dynamite." The anima are very committed to leaving things in their natural order. They try to work with the ways that things naturally work. It's part of why the anima are so put off when they come through the traverse and into the human world and they see manicured gardens and flower beds and things like that. Like that's not how they think. They go to them, if you want to see pretty flowers, you go where the pretty flowers are. You don't take the pretty flowers and put them where you want them to be because that's not where they would be naturally. Or they would, if, for example, if there wasn't flowers in the royal meadow and they wanted flowers, they would bring them and let them just grow as they would. They wouldn't like cut lines and boxes out of the ground and put them in there and line stuff. So they do pick flowers and stuff like that. Like they're not ridiculous about it. But I'm just saying, in terms of the world that they live in, to them it's natural to allow things to be as they are or as they naturally would be. So they don't automatically start to think about how can we do this. Um, but yeah, with the portals themselves, they couldn't close them that way anyway. So that was one question I had. The other one was about specific characters and whether and certain things that might happen for them, certain stories that we might or might not see people finding their mates and this kind of thing. I'm not gonna say yes or no on which characters are going to get to certain places and relationships and stuff like that. But I am going to tell you that even though I'm concluding the Animus series with Queen, once again, I've left myself room with stories to tell. So if it, you know, ends up gaining a great following and there's demand for another book in the series, I do have options. I've got three different options of stories that I had planned to tell or hoped to tell, possibly four. And so it would just be a matter of seeing where the tides were turning, if it came to that. But I have a hunch, just watching how these things tend to happen on web novel. I think people, they get really invested in a story, but when they get to the end of it, they're ready for something new. They want something that feels different and exciting. And I think that's why Queen never really took off. I think the people who finish King, they're not all going to Queen. Some of them are. Some of them get to the end of King and they're like, I can't wait. Because they don't want it to be over and they want to spend more time in the world. And I love that. But I think for most readers, King is a massive book. It's the equivalent of about five thick fantasy books in terms of if you were looking at it on a bookshelf. Um, and I think most people get to the end of that and they're like, okay, I want something else now. Um, so yeah, so the only reason I won't tell you specifically, at least not now, about certain characters and where they're going to end up, is because there is still a chance that I'll end up writing those stories. But if I don't, maybe come back to me in 6 months and say, do you think this is ever going to happen? Because if it's not, I'm happy to tell you what I know. Because I know a lot of things that happen after the conclusion of the story. I know where life is taking certain characters and stuff. So I'm happy to answer those questions later. Okay. Janelle or anybody else, did you have questions for me about the Beast series?
Oh, I got a lot.
So just keep in mind that if this is public, it will be listened to by people who aren't in privilege.
Okay.
So if we're not sure, either send me a question in a DM so I can take a quick look at it before we put it out there, or um, I might we might have to be a little bit cagey with our references. That's all.
Okay. Well, one is kind of at the end of Beast and then how the story is progressing in Queen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering about a specific character from the Beast book that hasn't come up yet near the end of Queen.
You are that so okay. I'm confident that I know which character that you're talking about because I have a couple other people that keep asking about them as well. So there's
Uh,
one character, which is the one that you're probably thinking about, whose perspective was introduced in volume 2 of King and then became like a major character.
no, this one never had a perspective.
Oh, okay, then I'm curious. Who are you talking about?
The detective.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're not gonna see him again.
Well, I didn't think so, but would that be a reference like what had happened from you know at the end of Beast 20 years later? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously Gary is not in jail or whatever, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, will that ever come up?
Okay. So and I clearly haven't done a great job on it. The conversations that happen in the elders' meetings around the human who has come through and has recently been revealed to be um, linked to things that are happening on the human side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all of that whole story informs what that detective was learning about. So,
Gotcha.
in order for that detective to learn those things at the end of Beast, um, it was because there's always been a very small presence of anima on Earth. Just a number, scattered around, just people who defected or were involved in the whole, wider thing. Um, so there's always been here and there um, certain people who were aware, not very many, but certain people who
Hmm.
were aware that there was something else. Something else is here, but they don't necessarily, like the detective, they don't know where it's come from, they don't know what it is. They've just, I mean, the way I the way I tried to frame it for people, when you learn about the disformed and the defection and all of the stuff that's been happening over the past 20 years, the idea was that you see that the anima themselves aren't even entirely aware that they've lost people. Um,
Hmm.
you know, so there's, I'm trying to figure out how to say this carefully. There are people who left anima and ended up in the human world, and they just kind of went and made a new life. And every so often, not very often, but here and there, somebody gets hurt or um, maybe hears about some of the stuff that's coming to fruition in Queen, tries to do something about it. Whatever it is, every so often you're going to end up essentially with evidence of their existence, right? And
Right.
most of the time when that happens, it happens with people who don't have any clue or any point of reference for it. So all they've got is these weird, either blood spatters or, some sort of DNA or something. Basically all they've got is a clue that there's something else that's around, but they don't know what it is and they don't know where it came from. The
Right. Like
people
how
who
the detective found out.
Yes, exactly. So he gets the heads up that, hey, you're not the only one who's found this, right? But they don't know why or where it's come from or exactly what it is. Um, and in terms of the specific references of what the detective learned about places where that had been found, the fact that it was found in several different places, all that was a reference to was, hey, this has been happening for millennia. Um, the anima have been crossing the traverse for literally thousands of years, and certainly for hundreds, and it got greatly reduced several hundred years earlier than what we're seeing. But prior to that, there was a real sort of traffic, so to speak, that went back and forth. So you have entire families over in the human world that nobody even knows about because they just got bred out over time, right? This is how I imagine the history anyway, is that back in the day, before the whole thing with the disform started, there's a certain number of humans who are in anima and fully aware of the whole thing, and there are anima who choose to go into the human world. And that's no big deal back then because everybody's doing their thing and doing it in a healthy way. Um, and some of those people never left. Some of those people stayed, and there's not very many of them, but there's the odd anima here and there throughout time who's ended up staying in the human world. And eventually, if they die never being discovered of what they were, their kids are half, then their kids are a quarter. Like eventually it stops showing up in the bloodline.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, the way I see it, what the detective discovered was effectively that historically there's always been a little bit of this, and we just don't know why or how.
Right.
But in Queen, you're seeing the people who do know and do understand what's happening, and
I
so.
guess. Well, I guess my question was more specifically pertained to Gary and his situation living with Callie and marrying her, and that detective warned her to stay away from him.
hmm The
So my
Guardians are really, really good at covering things up.
okay.
They've had to be. They've covered up murders, they've covered up kidnappings, they've covered up the anima. Like, they have um, powerful people that they can call on to make sure that things that are not supposed to don't ever sort of come to the light of day. And they generally try not to. The reason, like for example, the reason Callie can't cross is because she's a sworn guardian, right? There's a whole guardian bloodline, but only I think it's two per generation are sworn guardians who are given access to all the information. Everybody else, it's kind of like this legend that they know about, and they're aware that part of their wealth comes from that and all that sort of thing. But most
Okay.
people in the bloodline don't know the whole story. Um, but the likes of Callie and Shaw and Eve, they've sworn in, and they have access to resources at times. Like I like that we've mentioned, for example, that there's a doctor that they can go to and stuff like that. So
Okay.
they basically what they do at times when things get really pressured is they look for help in some of the avenues that they have. And the way that I imagined that concluded with Gari was A, you had the detective who is emotionally invested in not seeing Callie's life destroyed, um, and B, doesn't have answers. I used to work for the police, and so many cases you have no idea where they know exactly what has happened, but they can't prove it. And until they can prove it, they can't pursue it because it won't help. Nothing will come of it. They'll bring the guy in, there'll be questions asked, and then nothing. So they don't give sort of the heads up. They don't let the people know that they know because they're still trying to find some evidence that they can like use to put in front of a judge and say, give us a warrant. And to me, that's where it got left at the end of Beast, was basically the detective was saying, look, I can't prove it, but I know what's going on. I know something's going on. And he's at that point concerned about her. He thinks she doesn't know, but she very much knows. Um, so yeah, in my mind, the detective was he was the vehicle for you to see that the human world has contact with the fact that anime exists, but he's not a character like he's not going to show back up again or that whole thing. It basically got resolved over time,
Okay.
faded into the
That makes
background.
sense. That makes total sense. Okay. So I have a couple other questions. Most of my questions I think I might have to private chat you about, but
Okay.
because I know I have top tier privilege for Queen as well, so I don't want to spoil anything.
So the
Um,
the queen readers in the normal chapters are, I'll just check that really quick what they're up to. Um, Gar and Rika have just come back. So
oh, from
that's
their
where they're
honeymoon.
up to.
Okay, well then maybe I can ask that question. Okay. One of my other questions was the ending of Queen originally the ending for King of Beasts? Because
Yes.
okay,
Yeah, so I got about halfway into King and realized that there was no way to tell the whole story in the one generation. Because
hmm
originally, the prophecy was supposed to kick off or be their heads up that this was kicking off what you see in Queen. Um, but it was just too much. There was just too much of it to tell, and I wasn't gonna fit it. I mean, Beast would have gone another another 600 chapters. Um, so yeah, yes, that was originally when I very first sort of conceived the end of Beast. This ending that you're getting in Queen is supposed to be the end of King.
okay, yeah, I could kind of tell there was kind of a paradigm shift a little bit. I mean, we still have the main characters of Eldrith and Aaron, but the fact that it's more shifting towards um, her parents has kind of I was like, oh, okay, this must be the end of the original end of the story.
Well, what you're gonna see, the portion of the story that you're in right now, that's true. I had to. That was why at the beginning of Volume 3, I said I had to go into other perspectives because it wasn't just them; it's also Gar.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yes, from that standpoint, I actually tried to write it without going into the older generation's perspectives, but it just wasn't gonna have the punch. And I knew that it was gonna leave it with too many questions. So right now, where you are in the story, you're right. It does have to kind of shift to them, and you end up with, three or four of them that you're spending a lot of time with. But that's gonna not be the case all the way to the end.
Okay, so it'll shift back.
Well, you're gonna stay with these characters to the end, but in terms of the amount of page time and stuff that they're getting,
Hmm.
it's gonna shift back to their kids and
Okay.
how they kind of handle everything. So, yeah, I understand what you're talking about, but I'd say in a probably a couple weeks, maybe three, um, you're gonna see it come back and be more about the younger generation again.
Okay. And okay, so I have another question, if you don't mind me keep
Yeah,
asking.
no, go ahead.
Um, this one's kind of like, to me, when this character was introduced, it was kind of left field. But will we ever find out where Peg is from and what exactly he is in his story?
Yes, you will.
Okay, because that was just like, where did he come from?
So, um, okay, so when I say that I've left myself room with these books to continue if there's more of an appetite, there's a whole side to Rika's story that we didn't weren't able to get into,
Okay.
um, and Peg's part of that. So um, you won't get a fully fledged um, explanation, but only because I'm hopeful that you'll be able to get that in the future.
Okay. Well,
So,
as long as I get a little nibble, I'll be okay.
yeah, I know he is kind of left field. I wanted to do so much more with him, but there was already so much material and it was already getting so out of control that I couldn't. He originally had a bigger part to play in what was going on, and I ended up writing him out.
Oh,
he's
sad.
he's in the back. Like I know what he's doing and I know where he is, but I just didn't have the page time to give to him because he's not a major role.
Okay. And then I have a three-part question that I feel like I've asked this before, but new things keep coming up to make me want to question it more. So,
Okay.
if you don't mind. Okay, this is part one of the three-part question. When it comes to the bond, the mating bond,
Hmm.
and how it sets. In the beginning, when Ref was talking to Elia about how their bond had set, and
Hmm.
how he had alluded to if he had gone and walked with somebody else, Lucine, that it would have been set because of the flames. Um, Now with Gar and Rika, with their bond not being set yet,
Hmm.
and it alluding to their emotional connection because she's not quite there yet.
Hmm.
Um, is there more to it than just the the true mate bond being outside of the flame, or is the flame more of a setting of it as well? Like, is it a two-part thing, or um,
So what it is, there's two things at play here. One, when I wrote the first conversation between Reth and Elia, I did not have the full picture myself yet. This is the
mm,
disadvantage to serialization. I hadn't explored all the different options, and I came to understand that better while I was writing that book, which is why you see differences between them and Elrith and Aaron, and then Gar and Rika. Um,
mhm.
but one thing I'm pretty sure, and maybe I thought I wrote it in, maybe I didn't. It's really hard to remember. I'm pretty sure there's a point in there somewhere where Reth makes a distinction between the true mate bond and mates who choose each other.
Hmm.
So not every anima has the true mate bond, right? That's actually pretty rare. Well, not rare like it never happens, but um, anima don't grow up assuming that they're going to find a true mate, right? They know that it's a possibility and they know lots of people who have them, but they also know lots of people who don't. So there's a
Oh,
mate
so
bond and there's a true mate bond. The true mate bond is set by the creator. The idea is that those people will find each other and will be together. They can't not. Eventually it will happen. Laren attempted to resist that and you saw where it got him.
yeah.
So when you have a true mate bond, and I think we have talked about this before, when you have a true mate bond, eventually it will out. People can resist, but eventually they'll get there.
And we're
Um,
seeing that with Rico right now,
yeah,
correct?
yes.
Okay.
So,
Even though they got married officially with the
yes.
human way.
So
Because
the
I was
thing,
wondering,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, because I was just wondering, like, with the flames, was that something particular with the flame? Because people that walk the flames have that
No,
bond where they
so
can smell them?
the way that it pans out in my head, and this is something that I sort of see in my own life, in my relationship. There's kind of stages to your emotional intimacy,
Hmm.
and or stages to intimacy in general. And the first stage being when we both recognize that we want to be together, right? And that's a stage that any anima can have. Any anima can see another anima, develop an intimate relationship, and decide that this is the one for me, right? And bond, have a mate bond that is achieved by essentially through that decision. But what it is a combination of um, a sexual relationship, an emotional connection, and a mental decision, right? People can choose to give themselves wholly to somebody else. And so most of the anima, more than half of them, that's what they do. They, just like humans do, they walk through their day, they walk through their life. When they think they've found the right one, they choose that person. But there's a mate bond that occurs when those two people choose each other. To me, the flames and smoke, it's not that the ritual itself has power, it's that what it does, and I think that this is true in real life, when people make decisions and step into them, it it deepens something in them. What I observed when I got married, and I got married at like 26 or something, 27, um, what I observed was that the act of getting married was much easier than I anticipated it would be. It had seemed like such a massive decision and this massive moment and this huge milestone my whole life. But when the day actually came and I walked down the aisle and we said the vows, it was actually really easy and simple to do. Um, and that surprised me. I remember commenting to people at the time that it surprised me how easy it was to do. What I observe about that now that I didn't observe at the time was that I was all in my heart. So even though I was nervous and even though there was doubts or there was questions or there was stresses or whatever, because it's always stressful with a wedding, when the time came, I knew that I was where I was supposed to be. And so it was really easy to do. So to me, it wasn't that we stood up in front of a crowd and we said vows and we signed a contract. That's not what made us married. What actually made us married, I believe, was the commitment that we made person to person, right?
Hmm.
Because legal contracts, yeah, sure, they've been around for thousands of years, but people write legal contracts in deception all the time. It doesn't actually mean that they mean what they're saying. Um, to me, when you're married before the Creator, that's a connection that has it goes to your soul. Um, and so what I observe, or what I guess what I've written into the anima, is that some of them find each other and make that commitment. And when they do make that commitment, when they go all in, they have a mate bond that forms. And things like walking the flames and smoke, cohabitating, having sex. These things draw that out, I guess, make
Okay.
it tangible to
I guess
them.
it just, yeah. And I guess it just confused me because when Reth was talking about Lucine and if he walked the flames and smoke with
Hmm.
her,
He would have
then
had a
they would,
mate bond with her.
but
If Elia had never come back and he'd never seen her again, he would have formed a mate bond with Lucine, but it wasn't a true mate bond.
so it wouldn't have been the sense entwining, right?
No, their sense would have entwined because the sense entwined for any mate bond. What it what it
Um,
what it would have been, it wouldn't have had the depth. He wouldn't have claimed Lucine. Lucine would not have offered herself. Like, there's a lot of things that happened between Reth and Elia, and the reason those things happened was because they emotionally invested in each other. Um, and because they sensed the true bond, which is, you know, somebody who doesn't share my faith would call it destiny, that this was meant to be. And I do think there's truth to that. I just think it has a source. So with Reth and Elia's bond, they were intended for each other when they were created.
okay.
If Elia had never come back, because we're looking at this from a human flesh perspective, right? So Reth, when he's talking to her, at that point he'd given up. He thought she'd mated somebody else, and he'd just walked away. So he was talking to her from that position, which is where he was until she showed up, which was he was never going to have her, and so he never actually mated, which he normally would have done by that age, and the people basically forced it on him. So he was going to go form a mate bond with somebody else as he thought he should, but it would not have had the same depth and it wouldn't have had the same resonance emotionally that
Okay.
he had with Elia.
So is that why when Elia went to the women's council when she met them the first time and they were smelling her to make sure that she was his true mate, is that what they were detecting the
Yeah, so
depth of it?
Candace, I think Candace and the oh wait, so Candace says to her, "It's strange. It's like his scent is with you, but they haven't entwined, or something like that."
Yeah.
Because she's observing that, similar to what's going on for Gar and Rika, that they haven't fully got there yet, right? So there's a bond that's in place, but it's not cemented. It's similar, it's different catalysts, but basically what Candace was observing early on, before they had sex, was that they had it was like they were together but not entwined.
Hmm.
So after they have sex, their scents entwine, and actually they become part of each other's scent, so that from that point on in their lives, anywhere that they went, if an anima had met either of them independently, when that same anima then met the other one, they would recognize who they were, if that makes sense. So if
Yeah.
if an anima had met Reth alone and smelled him, when they then met Elia, even if Reth wasn't there, they'd recognize her scent as being part of his. They'd recognize that she was his mate. Um, and it's I don't know how to explain it because it's just kind of a thing that I can have in my head. But what you saw with, for example, Elrith and Aaron was that they were already so emotionally intimate with each other because they had known each other for so long and they trusted each other so much that their bond snapped into place before they had sex,
Right.
because their hearts were there, right? They didn't even have to go that final step. Once Elrith became aware and understood and wanted to be with him, that was all that was needed. That was the final step for them. But that's because they had this huge lead up to that. The other couples didn't get those opportunities. If Reth and Elia had stayed close to each other from childhood into adulthood, their true mate bond would have snapped into place probably in their late teens, because they were there emotionally. I don't mean that they were there when they were kids. What I mean is that same sort of emotional intimacy and trust that Aaron and Elrith had, Reth and Elia would have built over time as well. So,
Okay.
yeah. So basically, what you're seeing now in Queen is somebody who wants the bond and recognizes the bond, but is still holding back, holding a little bit of themselves back out of fear. And so the bond's not cementing. It's not fully, it's present, but it's not fully completed yet.
Okay.
Does that
I
make
have,
sense?
yeah, and thank you. And I have three more questions besides the one that I want to private message you.
Well, does it?
Um,
I just want to see because does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask about any of the Beast books or characters? I'm not going to shut you down completely, Janelle. I just don't want
no, I
to.
get it.
Does anybody else have any questions?
So I have one question. I sent you a direct message, so can you check it?
Oh, is
And
that the Canada reference?
yes, yes, yeah.
So that was, sorry, I was trying to vaguely answer that earlier. The um, everything that I was explaining earlier with the detective and with the anima that they've come and they've spread out, they've been around. The only reason I used Canada as a reference in King was because I needed a place that was far enough away and under a different jurisdiction that it wasn't a simple answer to just get it sent to you. You know, in modern technology times, when law enforcement connect, they can share information really easily and quickly and to great detail. So I needed the primary information that he was getting to come from a place where he couldn't just snap his fingers and get it because it's a completely different legal system. Um,
Uh,
so that's the only reason it was in Canada.
okay.
Sorry.
Because when we were reading the chapter, like, it felt like Callie was, she was going to go investigate about it. Like, at least that was the impression I got. Like, like she was going to go find out, like, how they, like, or pursue that, like, to
Hmm.
see how much they know about anima or.
Yes. So what Callie and Gari have been doing for the past 20 years is that they have been following a combination of the information that they have from the hidden histories and things that they're learning, things that the disformed are discovering when they come into the human world, stuff like that. They've been pursuing or trying to pursue and understand or find the stuff that Rika is telling Elrith. So this is all coming together now. They've spent the last 2 decades trying to nail down who knows about the anima and what are they doing, right? So the detective, the conversation she had with the detective gave Callie the heads up that people who are not connected with the Guardians are aware of another race or another, you know, thing. So now we have to figure out who knows and what do they know and is it a danger or not and all of that sort of stuff. So that's what her and Gari have been doing for the past 20 years. But they are obviously doing that without, or trying to do that without letting them know that they're doing it. And also, there's a lot of secrecy and a lot of power in the people that Rika was working for. So yeah, there. That's Gari brings together the physical or the or sorry, Callie's side of this is that she's been the one kind of figuring stuff out from the human side. Gari's been reading the winds and figuring stuff out from the anima side, and then they kind of bring that together. And that was how Gari, when oh, I'm trying to think. I don't know. Spoiler alert. If anybody's not in the top chapters of Queen right now, maybe you just walk away for like 60 seconds. Um, oh shoot, now I forgot what I was going to say. The Gari's talking about Gar. Oh, so when Aaron and Gar got to the human side and Gari said, I was about to come and warn you. It was because all of this was starting to come together and they were figuring out what was happening. So you're going to see that this whole thing come together by the end of the book. Like you're going to see all of the pieces, the different people and the different stuff. It's all going to come together, and you're going to see how it all works and what they're doing. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
Was there any other questions about Beast?
Besides mine?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you should just go for it, Janelle.
Okay. Um, uh, will we see Laren
Yes.
soon? Sweet.
But he is not going to have major page time. But yes,
That's okay.
you will see him.
I just want to see him. That's all.
You'll see him.
Okay,
I
and
actually
then
really loved being back in his head and wished that I could have done more with him. But once again, it was all dragging out and so long and so convoluted. If I'd gone into yet another side part of it, it was
right.
just too much. So
Yeah, with his side with the his traverse and stuff.
yeah. So you kind of get all of that stuff explained to you rather than getting to
Okay.
see it happen.
Darn.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it really was like once I figured out, because I had originally mapped out exactly what was happening at both portals, both groups of people on both sides of the traverses. And I had originally planned that you were going to see Laren's side in action, like how it all came to be.
Oh,
But
with a
I had so much material already that when
right.
I got to that point in the story where you would have switched and gone in and seen exactly what was happening,
With that.
it was just too much. It was what it was too much page time to give information that actually all you needed was you're gonna see Suli's gonna lay it all out and she's gonna do it in like one chapter.
Yeah,
Do
I've
you know what
already
I
read
mean?
some
Like,
of
but to
Suli's.
tell that story in perspective would have taken probably 30 or 40 chapters. It was
Yeah,
just so much material for a very small gain, and it would have slowed the pace of the story. And yeah, it just wasn't going to work. So I had to cut out that side and just get the information to the reader. But you will see him.
understandable,
Yeah.
but still. Oh, okay. Okay, my next question is, will there be any cubs in the future for El or Gar?
I'm not telling. You will find
Okay.
out. You will find out.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's your right to say no. Or to yeah.
sorry. I'm gonna say, um, I so you guys know all of my stories have happy endings. All of them do, and I stand by that. You're gonna get your happy ending. But to me, a happy ending doesn't mean that everybody gets everything they want. It means that everybody ends up in a place where they're well and safe and happy.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, when I giggle and say, I'm not telling, I'm not saying everybody gets everything. I'm just saying where there are those fun things, you're gonna see them. You're gonna get to discover them.
Okay. My final question. Can we look forward to side stories like we did with the Christmas special at the end of Beast?
Not immediately.
Okay.
One of the reasons that I'm ending Queen the way I am is because it gives me the opportunity to then add something later and be. And when I say the opportunity, the way the system is set up on Web Novel, they've changed it late last year before I finished Beast. If you add a side story now after a book is marked complete, you can only do it one time. Like literally, if I went and wrote 20 chapters to be a Christmas special after the book was complete and I added it, that would be my last opportunity to put any material on that book. So
Is that what happened with Beast?
no, so Beast I didn't press or I didn't we didn't have it complete in the system until after I'd done the Christmas special. So that's it, system wise. This is all logistics, right? This has nothing to do with the story itself. System wise, Beast was not considered complete by the system until the Christmas special was done. Um, Originally, I had intended to complete the book and add the Christmas special after, but then I found out if I did that, I was never going to get to write anything else on that book, and I didn't want that to be the case. Um,
Okay.
so now Beast is complete, but there's still an option to do a side story on it. And I'm going to have Queen do the same thing. You're going to get your epilogue at the end, that kind of lets you see where everybody is, and everybody gets their little happy ending. And then I will have the opportunity later to add a story to it if I want to, and not have to make it an entirely different book.
It's exciting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always intended to do that, but I had, because originally the system would allow you just add whenever you wanted. You just reopen a completed book, add a bunch of stuff, and complete it again. Like you used to just, whatever you wanted, you just do. Um, and so I had intended with Reth and Elia to write several little small things throughout the year around occasions and stuff. But then it turned out that I couldn't do that. I had intended to do like a Valentine's special for them, and stuff like that. Excuse me, I'm gonna cough. Sorry, I hope you guys didn't hear that. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Um, yeah, so anyway, the system won't allow me to do that anymore. So I'm very reticent I can't, I don't want to just waste it on a little thing. So if I do end up adding side stories to either book, it'll be later on, and it'll be hopefully a fairly substantial thing. Or if the books never like pick up again, then one of these days I'll just do something cute and put it on there for fun.
They get more traction.
Yeah, well, I mean, Beast, don't get me wrong, Beast did great last year. It did really well. It was top five for like 3 months, I think. But as soon as you finish a book, it stops getting the readers. And Queen just never got there at all. So Alpha's doing better. It's not doing as well as King did, but at the same time, the whole web novel, everything is down on web novel right now. Like the income overall is dramatically reduced from last year. It's about half. Um, so that's because they're preparing for this new app, and so they're not bringing in, or at least this is what I believe, they're not bringing in as many new readers because they're saving the marketing for when they launch Chair Reads. So content wise, it makes no difference to you guys. They're not going to market Chair Reads to you, at least not intentionally. You might see it on Facebook and stuff, but you guys are better off to stay in web novel. Did you have any other questions, Janelle?
No, that was it, actually. I think what I was saving for the private chat was the whole bonding mess with Gar and Brika. So, because I was looking
Yeah.
at my notes, I have a lot of notes, so I was looking over them.
You're so
And
funny. I
so
love that. I do that too. I have my whole Harry Potter series has like notes in the margins and like bookmarks and stuff. Although I was such a train spotter with that series. I had a whole ending that I thought she was building to that would have been amazing, and she didn't. And I was just like, ah, I was so disappointed. Anyway,
So
that's not a
apparently, I only have one question to ask you privately, and that has to do with Alpha. So I'm done with all of them, other than that one.
okay. I have a hunch. It's a question I'm not going to answer, but it's probably
Probably.
because all it does is reduce the field of, do you know what I mean? Like if I tell you yes or no, it
Right. No, yeah. It's
it's
a
fun. Okay, because so go into the text for chat because so be it's asked a question in there. Is that the same question that you were gonna ask?
Let me check. Because it has to do with the females.
Oh, maybe not then.
Oh, no, I had that same thought before, but you had already addressed that before.
Yeah, so the traverses are entirely different than the gateways. Um, and I know that there's some similarities, and I know that part of that is because it's an easy, I shouldn't say easy, humans versus, so basically what I see is that the anima side of things is like a fantasy, and the alpha story is like something that could be real. And I don't mean that it is real. I mean, I was trying to go, you're tipping into sci-fi a little bit with
Well, it's a
alpha.
it's a contemporary mod fantasy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of them out there like that. Not
Yeah.
specifically in your vein of thought, but they're there. They
So,
exist.
yeah. So, I understand why people are making the connection. I'm
Hmm.
not going to say yes or no, but I do want to, in my own, just recognize that writing the books at the same time, I'm aware that there are similarities between certain ways that the chimera and the anima communicate and stuff like that, that I think I just couldn't escape because I had such an established in my own mind. I tried to get around it by using different animals, but especially with the wolves being central to both stories, I had such an established way of sort of demonstrating the the animal aspect that I think it's made the two stories feel like they come from the same place a little bit.
Well,
Um,
especially when you go into the DNA aspect of the humans finding that of the anima, and then
yes. So
it's easy to
I
go.
do imagine that there's a um what would you call it? Let's just say alpha is occurring at a different time.
Ah,
So you don't have, yeah. I feel like anything that I say, I feel like I'm either going to falsely lay a trail, or I'm going to give something away, or I'm going to sound like I'm giving something away when I'm actually not. And I feel like there's just no winning trying to answer this question. So just trust me that the portals and the gateways are very different. And yeah, and yeah. I feel I want to say more, but I feel like all I'm going to do is you guys are going to come back to me later and be like, but you said, and then I'm going to be like, well, I mean, anyway. So I'm
well,
sorry, that's got
yeah,
to be a no comment.
that's fine. That was not my question. I'm pretty sure mine's going to be a no comment as well, so it's okay.
Okay. Well, you can send it to me in private.
Okay.
Um, okay, so what I would love from you guys who are here, we are finishing the anime series in May, and I want to recognize that somehow. When we finished King, I did two things. I had a voice chat here on Discord on the day that the last chapter published. That was really just a relaxed hangout. Let's talk about it, because I've been waiting to talk about it. I'd love to do that again because I have been dying to see what you guys think of all of this when it's done. So if you guys think you're going to want to be around, um, it would actually be the 9th of May for America.
What day is that?
Um, my calendar here, one second. The 9th of May is a Monday, which is not ideal. I could probably go. Um, I don't know. I'll have a look. But then I also want to do, which I did last time with Beast. I did a Facebook Live, um, And even though that worked really well, for me, it was harder because you guys couldn't talk. And I'd really
Yeah.
love to do something with the end of the whole series. I'd really love to do something that allows better interaction instead of me reading your messages and then responding to them. I'd love to have more of a conversation.
Yeah, it did
Um,
feel a little one-sided.
yeah, well, in part too, there was a lot of people there that normally weren't at these things.
Hmm.
So I think it would be fun to either have, and I have not used it, so I don't know whether it's even possible. Apparently, Facebook now will allow you to create a private group like on Messenger where you can talk to each other like at the same, so it's like Zoom, right, where everybody's in the same room and you can all either be video or audio or whatever.
Well, that's
Um,
cool.
so because most of my more invested readers are on Facebook, um, I thought it would be good because there was definitely a good turnout getting people coming to Facebook. And so I think doing something on Facebook would be the right thing. I'm still working out exactly how that will work. But what to do? Like, do we just sit around and chat about it? Um,
Are you going to do giveaways like you did with Beast?
yeah, but I'm going to be really limited in what I can do because I'm not allowed to do paperbacks anymore.
Right.
I'm not allowed to do any merchandise that specifically references the book. So I can do stuff if the artist that let me do merch for giveaways does not want me to use the images for actual merchandise, like um, which I totally get. She uses these characters that you see on the book covers and stuff. They're actually her characters. She does comics, and then she does these beautiful, detailed drawings. So she has her whole story, and they all have their different names and their different lives, and they're very different to mine. Um, very different to mine. So I can understand why she doesn't want me to use the images for merchandise because then it gets very confusing if any of her customers come across them. But what that means is basically I'm reduced to like the t-shirts. I might be able to do an extra scene or something that I can write and give to people. I did think about one thing that they do in traditional publishing sometimes, what they call an annotated manuscript. So you can get a printout of like a scene or a chapter or something, and the author has made notes on it of things that were happening for them or things that they saw or got questions about or whatever. But we kind of do that a lot already in the comments.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so basically I'm just one thing I do want to do is I want to establish the um, I finished Like a Beast club. So anybody who's read both books from beginning to end is in the club. What I don't know, and I think I'll make a sticker or something, because I can use terms that include beast because you can't trademark beast. So I can use phrases and terms and stuff that include beast or alpha, wolf and lion, stuff like that. But I can't use like quotes from the book, for example. Not if it's recognizably unique to my characters. Um,
What,
so
like alpha male BS?
that one, the reason I was allowed to use it is because it actually exists in other books and it's
Hmm.
not trademarkable. It's not a phrase. There's no element to that phrase that is unique to my story. It's basically it's like a swear word. You can't trademark a swear word because everybody can use it, right? Well, this phrase has been used in other places, so I can use that, but it's not a phrase that really want to be the mark of my story. even
Right.
though even though I love that phrase and I have a lot of fun with it, that's not how I want to go out. I guess. It's not what I want to be known for if somebody's never come across my book. I don't think that sets the right tone.
No.
Um so I'm trying to figure out what I can do. But anyway, so I am going to establish the I Finished Like a Beast club. But what I don't know is what I'm going to do with that, whether it's just a little bit of extra content for people or something like that. But if you guys have any ideas, oh, and a couple of people had said on Facebook that they wanted me to do another interview with my husband.
Oh,
And I asked him, and he is willing to do that. But I don't. What would you guys even want to know? Because I'm sort of sitting there going, what? Because everything that we talked to him about last time was fairly generic, just about, books and Reth and I was like, I don't know what I would ask him this time or what he would ask me. Like, so if you guys have any ideas, and it doesn't have to be right now, uh, I'm very eager to hear something that would be fun for you in terms of sort of recognizing the end of all of this. Um, and I am going to try and come up with a couple little goodies and things to give away. It is a lot trickier this time, so let's not have too high of expectations.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Are the mugs were too expensive for you, right?
yeah, they just ended up being not only buying the mug itself, but the postage because I have to get it
Mm.
posted to me and then to other people. They ended up costing me like $35 each,
Dang.
and it's just too much. Especially this year, I'm not earning as much this year as I was earning last year. So, um, and I wasn't earning insane amounts last year. um, so yeah, the mugs, unfortunately. What I will probably do is give people something that they can. So like, if you wanted to be a $1 Patreon of the artist, you're allowed. Like, I can go because I'm a Patreon of hers. I can take any of her images and I can go get stuff made on um, Shutterfly or any other site that does stuff. She gives that permission to people who are Patreon. So you can, as long as you're only using it for personal use, you're not selling it. That was why I could never earn money. Like when I was getting samples and stuff done, I had to only charge exactly what I paid. Um, so it was never, it was, I ended up charging a little bit less than I paid in the end. But the whole idea was to just let people get stuff, right? Because it's fun. So there are ways, like I can give you guys the means if you want to go make your own Reth cup or
Because I missed
bag or
that.
whatever. But you would have to become a $1 Patreon of this woman for at least a month to get the images to be able to do that. I can't give them to you because they're not mine. So yeah, so I'm trying to think of something that I can do. I'm thinking stickers or scenes, things that are flat that can go in envelopes. I can do cards as long as I'm not charging for them. I have a few Reth cards left that I'll probably send out as giveaways and stuff. And I'll probably do one for Aaron and Elrith and stuff as well. So I have some little things, but in terms of the actual interaction that we're going to have, if you guys end up having any ideas or if you've attended anything with another author or another sort of online thing that was fun, I'd love to hear about it because I don't want to just, okay, you come listen to me talk. Like, I'd love for there to be some kind of interaction or activity or
What
something.
What about us reading our favorite scenes, like we had talked about?
Well, I love that, but every time I talk about it, people are like, "Yeah," and then nobody, then nobody wants to do it.
I
Um,
know. I thought we were gonna do it last time.
so did I, but when it came down to it, everybody privately bowed out. Or not everybody, but enough people that there wasn't really going to be a thing. There was going to be like three of us. So, um, which kind of defeated the purpose. I have
That's
thought
too
about
bad.
doing something like getting people to record themselves so that I could put something together and play it for you.
Hmm.
But again, what tends to happen is people say yes and then don't, and then lose their lose their courage or whatever. So, um, I did think about a trivia game, like maybe
Oh, that'd be
doing
fun.
a trivia game where people can win prizes. Um,
Like, how
but
nerdy can you be?
well, but see, that's the thing because I don't want to make it inaccessible. Like for some people, they've read the books through once and they're never
Oh,
going to go back. And there's so much content there. you guys honestly remember more things than I do. Details.
Well,
People ask me about details. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go look. I don't
well,
know.
to be honest, I've read Beast like 3 times
Oh
now.
my gosh, that's insane. I mean, thank you, but that's insane. Um, it's funny, I went back. I can't even remember. Oh, it was before I was gonna write Reth's perspective again in Queen. I went back and read. I don't know. It was probably 40 or 50 chapters of the first volume of the first book. And it was so weird going back to the beginning. I got to see where I could tell, oh, I hadn't figured that part out yet. Like, but it was so weird going back to the beginning and seeing them in that place where they didn't really know each other yet. Um,
Yeah.
it was fun, like I enjoyed it, but it was so weird and not and having them still kind of feeling each other out and not being certain of each other, and yeah, it was really strange. But it was good. It was good to get back in their heads and stuff. I went and sort of picked out 2 or 3 chunks through King and reread them before I had to write him again. And gosh, I miss him. Honestly, of all of my characters, I miss all of my characters when I finish them. I still miss Dane from CEO. Um, but I miss Reth the most. I've discovered. It's my happy place to be in his head.
He's such a good character. Oh,
He's just such a good man. Like, um, I can't even remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm rambling on. Basically, yeah. So maybe I'll put up a survey or something in Discord and Facebook. I just want to do something for the end that is more than just. I do want to just talk about it and I do want to answer questions, but I want to do something more. So
that game you did the last time with picking random things and adding it to a scene, that was pretty good.
I'm so glad that you like that. That felt super awkward for me, and I'm never going to do it again.
Okay.
I
Well, I liked
stopped
it.
the recording after that and restarted it so that when I posted it on YouTube, that part wasn't on there because I just felt
Okay.
so awkward.
Well, I think it was also due to the scene you chose.
Well, it was meant to be funny, but I think that would be funnier with a group of women sitting around who are already. I did it too early in the piece. I didn't prepare correctly last time when we did the anniversary one. I should have been prepared. I should have collected my questions like I usually do and been prepared to kind of get things rolling. And I didn't, and it was a mistake. I didn't. The ice hadn't broken. People weren't talking, and I was just like hanging out there in the wind. So it's a lot my fault. Um, but yeah, that felt. I was just like, I'm never doing that again. But I could. I mean, yeah, I'm more than happy to write something like a scene or something that hasn't been published.
Okay.
But then
That
it's
might
about
be a little
who
better.
who do you do the scene with, right? Because now we've got how many major point of view characters at this point? 8?
Yeah,
Yeah,
with Anima alone.
yeah. So yeah. So then then you end up doing one, and somebody else is like, but I wanted this character, and so it's just like I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'll come up with some. But yeah, I want some kind of interactive activity. So maybe the trivia is the way to go and just not make it too complicated.
Yeah, I like trivia idea. That'd be good.
Well, um, I think I think that's it. Unless anybody else has any questions or comments, thoughts.
I feel like I dominated the conversation today. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think everybody was happy to listen.
Okay.
I think they still are.
They're just being really quiet.
um, I want you guys to know how thankful I am. A, that you'll show up to something like this, but also just in general. The enthusiasm that you guys have for these stories and the um, like the comments that you leave on the chapters and the fact that you'll come be my friend on Facebook and all this kind of stuff. This is all stuff that I always dreamed about, that people would love my characters this much. Um, and this year, just with everything else that's been going on, it still blows my mind. Like I still sit there sometimes and I'm just like, thank you, Lord. Like I just never I even though I don't want to say I never thought it was possible. Obviously I was hoping that it was possible, but I had been writing long enough and publishing long enough that I just accepted that I'm too weird. I'm never going to have people that love my stuff as much as I do. Um, so the fact that y'all do this, it floats my boat, and I want you to know how thankful I am for that. Um, and I hope that future stories will capture your imagination as much as Beast has. Like I hope that we can find those places where we're just as in love with the new characters that are coming. Oh, I tell you what, I fell in love with Zev all over again yesterday. And you guys are going to enjoy, if you're in alpha, y'all enjoy tonight's chapters. Like I was like, damn.
Well, I already like him a lot, but good.
I really, and maybe it's just me. Maybe y'all are going to read the 2 chapters tonight and be like, well, yeah, but that's, but for me, I was like, oh, there's my boy.
Well, I fell in love with Reth all over again last night. So,
Oh, yes.
dude, you
Oh, I was
wrecked me.
aching for him. I went back after you said that they had been hard chapters. I went back and read them because I couldn't remember where we were at,
Yeah.
and because I've been in other books all week. Um, and I reread those chapters, and I was just like, oh, my man, I love you so
You made
much.
you made me cry again, and I was sobbing like earlier, like this week, and when the whole release happened and it was a bunch of Gari chapters one after another, I was just like freaking out, just crying. I couldn't read, but I had to stop and clear my eyes and keep reading.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. But yeah, it was so cute. Cervanti was private messaging me while we were reading because we were ended up reading it together, oddly enough,
Oh,
and
that's
we
so
were
cute.
encouraging. Yeah, we were encouraging each other. We're like, it's okay, we'll get through it. And we're like, we're crying.
That is so cool. I'm so touched.
I'll have to screenshot our conversation and send it to you. It was really
Dude, that would
funny.
be a lot of fun. Do you remember? You might not remember because it was a good. It was weeks ago now. I was in the Discord saying that I was back with Gari, and I was crying. So y'all better be crying too.
Oh yeah, I remember that, and I was like, oh shoot, I'm gonna cry. And sure enough, every single stinking chapter with Gari, I'm like, oh, he's
Oh, I
back.
love him so much. I love him in a
Yeah, me
different
too.
way than I love Reth, but
Yeah,
I just love him. He's just such a good man. And
I
yeah,
love
I'm
him in
interested
different
to see what
ways.
y'all think of Reese. Like, cuz he's a hard one for me. Like half of me adores him and the other half of me is like, "Grow up, man."
A bit broody, like whiny a little, like not maybe not whiny, but moody.
He's less
Just
mature is what it
yeah,
comes down to. He's grown up in the human world and he's not matured the same way that the anima
yeah.
do.
Because I was comparing him to Gari at the
Mhm.
same age, and I'm like, okay, there's a disconnect, and I guess it's upbringing at this point. Even though Gari is a good dad, I was just like, okay, it must be
He just feels younger to
environment.
me.
Yeah, like I don't know, Gari didn't seem 19 to me at the beginning of Beast.
Well, but to be fair, Gari had a lot more difficulty. Like he had a lot more crap to wade through in his younger
Well,
years than
sure, because
Reese
of all
did.
the yeah, all the
Reese has not been refined by the fire in the same way that his father was.
true.
So, yeah. So that, yeah. No, I agree. And I almost bailed on Reese because I was not. I was like, oh, they're not gonna like him. They're not gonna like him. He's too. I'm not sure if whiny is the right word, but that is kind of how
No,
it
that's
feels. It's just that he feels young. He
yeah. I
feels
didn't
like
want
a
to say
kid
whiny.
still.
Yeah, maybe angsty is a better
Yeah,
word.
that's probably.
Because I'm like, well, Whiny's not exactly right either, but
But it does feel he does feel a little bit that way to me, and I don't like that. Like I don't like that in a strong guy. And so
Yeah, but
I was struggling with him, but you get to see some of his good side later.
well, I was seeing more of him r- interacting with Elbreth, and I'm like, okay, she's seeing more in him too. So it's like,
Hmm.
okay, here we go. He's gonna be better established, I'm sure, later.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean he doesn't get a ton, but you do get to see him. You do get to see the good side of him come out, because and that was what I realized is, unfortunately, it's just a matter of where the story is at and what needs to be told. You're seeing Reese at his worst. Like you're seeing him
he's
faced with, the worst of what he's had to really face. He's had danger in his life. He has to. Um,
to be so
n-
guarded because he's
yeah,
anima, right?
yes. So he has guarded's the right word. He's never been able to fully be free because he has to be careful,
Right.
not to
But
be discovered. But in terms of his actual existence, he's a massive, handsome young man with money. Like you know, it's
yeah.
not been hard for him.
Well,
It's been
apparently,
emotionally draining is probably the worst of what he's had to deal with. But now he's facing actual, like, scary, real life stuff. And so he's getting
yeah.
pushed to his limits. So you're not getting, when he first gets introduced, you're not getting to see the best of him. And I struggled with that because I wanted to show the best of him, but you get to see some of it, but without
He
going into
started
his
out,
head, you can't see it.
yeah, and we started out very differently with him versus Gari because we saw Gari basically rescuing Elia with her
Yeah.
troubles. So it's like, oh, he's a great guy, coming and helping her.
Yeah.
And then you see poor Reese, he's just wrecked because he's, all the crap that's happening in the
Yeah.
book.
He's afraid. He's
Yeah,
scared. And people, when they're scared, some people you get to see the good side of them, but for most people, when they're scared, that's their most sort of um, selfish and or like I don't even it just, yeah, you're not seeing people at their best when they're afraid, and right off the bat, the first time you see him, he's already afraid. So.
yeah, especially with his mom.
Hmm. And
So I
because
get
he's with
that.
his parents too. I don't know if you guys experience this. I'm very blessed that I live next to my parents. We have neighboring properties because they're well into their 70s now, and um, I still to this day, and I'm well into my 40s. I'm in the second half of my 40s. If I go to their house and I sit down at the little table in my mother's kitchen while she's doing something, I don't even realize it, but I turn into a kid again. Like,
Right.
not in a kid, like I think like a kid, but more in, she's getting me a drink. She's, asking me about, like, she's being my mom. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, I
And
totally get that.
whereas when I walk out of her house and then I go, to lunch with my friend or whatever, I'm not, it's so weird. Like I don't even realize that it happens until I catch myself in a place going, my 75-year-old mother is washing dishes right now while I sit here and eat chocolate. Like there's something wrong with this picture. Um, but you just fall into this place, or at least I
It's
do.
your Yeah, it's the default.
Yeah, I'm a
It's how
kid.
you act when you're a kid. Yeah,
I'm a
I get it.
kid with my parents, and that's part of what you're seeing with Reese as well. Is he's a kid. He's with his parents. His parents are the most important people in his life, and they're under threat. And he's a kid, and he doesn't like that. And so, you know, that's what you get to see of him at the beginning. So,
Well,
yeah,
if it's any consolation, I do like him. I know that he has more potential, and I'm looking at that.
yeah, that's good. I'm glad that you. I have been concerned that people are going to be like, "What a brat," or not a brat.
No,
Not see him as a hero. I guess is what.
well,
It
what
wasn't
I'm
that I thought people were
seeing,
going to hate him. Is that I was afraid they were going to be disappointed that Gari's son wasn't a hero. You know.
Oh no, I don't feel that way. I see what he's going through, and I see that it's really hard, and that he has to face all this stuff so young. But even though he's still anima and they mature faster, he obviously hasn't matured as fastly as somebody else in anima at his age.
Yeah. No, he hasn't,
And
because that's part of the life of convenience and stuff of humanity, with money especially.
right.
They just not they don't have to endure as much. So he just
Hmm.
hasn't grown up as much as his peers. You know, him and Elrith are basically the same age, and they're worlds apart. Like,
Oh,
she's easily got a decade on him
right.
in terms of maturity. I mean, and partly because she's a girl, but you know what I mean? Like, when I had to write the scene between them, like, she is very much the person who's reaching out, as opposed to the person who's being reached out to, you
Well,
know?
she had a completely different upbringing, being her dad was the king, and she had responsibilities and
Yeah.
things.
That's
And
true. She is actually more grown up than a lot of people her age, even in anime.
right.
But that was where I saw the really stark difference. I was already feeling it with Reese anyway, but when I wrote those scenes between those two, I was like, oh yeah, no, he's not there.
So that brings up a question that just came to me, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Um, Seeing how they are so close in age, was Callie pregnant when Gari went back to Anima? And
No,
the
but she
okay,
got pregnant right around the Christmas special.
aha, that's what I thought.
So
That
yeah,
scene.
not to put too fine a point on it,
Okay, thank you.
but oh, Fern, you are here. I thought you just came into the text, and I just answered you in the text. Fern's being a smartass because that's what he does, and I love him
Again?
for it. Yeah, this is our thing. This is our dynamic. Fern makes funny jokes, and I try to shoot him down like I don't find them funny.
I always giggle when he's on. I'm like, oh, good. Not this again.
This, yeah, our boy in the sea of women.
I talked to my husband about him, and he's like, why is he even there? I'm like, he's funny. That's why.
Yeah, he's our. What are you, Fern? You're our mascot, kind of, or our
Comic
no?
relief.
I don't know. He's my. I don't know. He's
He's your
he's
sidekick.
he's my muse. No, he's really not. I don't know, but he's fun. Can't wait for the brat to pilot. Nice. No one's gonna get those references, Fern. I barely get them. I
I got
barely
that
get
one.
them. There is a bunch of guys that came in that are in the writer side, because I actually have this whole hidden side of the server that's just for writers, and we do sprints together and stuff. Um, but once or twice they've come into the general chat room, the all books chat room, because they didn't realize, because they can only see like three or four different chat things, and so they didn't even realize that they were in with my readers. And they were coming in, and I was like, dude, Raj, dial it back, man. Anyway, that's just funny to me, obviously, but yeah, everybody in here is of the romantic ilk, romance
Except for
lovers,
Fern, right?
except for Fern. Although Fern writes beautifully.
I write romance. I, I don't even write anymore. I am here as a product of nepotism.
Aw.
He's my
So
he's my
thank you.
author's son.
Yeah, I'm just my author mom. Pretty cool.
He does write. I have to say though, he writes a fantastic dynamic between like people in a romantic relationship. I do not suggest reading his love scenes. I do I do suggest.
But I did that in a mental place of like I'm not well. So yeah, don't read those. Those are like really bad.
It's not that they're bad, Fern. They're
I
just
can
very
I
male. They're very
yes.
they're very male.
I I don't know. Don't ask me about the moment in my life. It's a blur, and I don't wish to talk about it.
I won't bring up traumatic
Like
experiences.
I slept at like before that started. I woke up after I wrote it, and I was like, wow, who wrote this? Like I was possessed by the spirit of like you know
Right. Right.
yeah of the web novel
Snoo snoo.
god of
So in
smut.
the for you ladies who don't know, in the author there's whole servers that are for web novel authors and they have different rooms for different levels and different stuff. Um, and there's certain filters and stuff that are set so you're not supposed to be able to swear and things like that. And one of the things that they've done is they've filtered out a lot of the words for sex. So you can't type those words in. If you do, they won't go through or something. I can't remember. I think you get warned by Meat
Or
Six or
I'd
something.
get banned.
Yeah.
You get kicked and then you get banned.
So what they've done in the author chats is I don't know how or who or when. I don't know if it started there or not, but when I arrived, I learned that the way that they refer to love scenes is as snoo snoo. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's a
No,
thing
no, no,
outside
no, 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 no,
of
no,
web
no.
novel or if what, but all the authors when they're writing these scenes, oh, I have to write a snoo snoo because they're actually really hard to write, or at least for most people.
I mean, I bet they really are.
Well, I find uh, I find writing a snoo snoo scene takes me about twice as long as a normal scene. So
Mhm.
I don't usually write them when I'm sprinting because I don't get the word count down. But yeah. Anyway, that's just a little. I think the term snoo snoo is really cute, which is why it
um,
makes me laugh that the guys use it. But
um, yeah, I know the context of what Stu's do.
is it suitable for a
Oh,
family
yeah,
audience?
it's a Futurama joke. So if you
Is
want
it?
me to
Oh,
explain a Futurama joke,
I
I can
thought I
explain a
heard it
Futurama
before.
joke.
Well, I wasn't sure. I didn't know. I
So,
had asked at some point where it came from, and somebody told me, but I couldn't remember.
it's the Amazonians in
Oh,
Oh.
the
right.
Futurama. They called the actors Snoo Snoo. And the thing was, they were so buff they killed the men.
Remember
They
that
died from
episode?
crushed pelvises. And that was like their punishment and reward to like males that visit their island, you
It's
know?
like is it the praying mantises that they
No, 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 it's the
reproduce and
actual
then
buff
the woman
women.
eats the man, the female
No,
eats
In
the
no,
a
no,
male.
sense, I
no.
guess so.
It's the buff women, you know? I think the gag
Amazonians.
was, visitors, we shall reward you with Snoo
Oh.
Snoo, and then you shall die a valiant death. And then they rejected the women, like, you shall die for rejecting our good graces. By Snoo Snoo.
Death by snoo snoo.
Yeah, like,
That's got to
you
be a
know,
T-shirt somewhere.
I'm sure on a
yeah.
Futurama site somewhere.
Yeah. See, these are the kind of things that I wish that I could make for my stories. Anyway,
Same.
same. Well,
It's
oh
so,
gosh,
it's
I'm
so
sorry,
funny.
guys. It's after 3, and well, for me it is. I told my family that I would get off at 3.
Hey,
Um,
6 minutes after.
yeah, I know.
It's pretty good.
It's better than I usually. Last time I told them I'd get off at 3, I got off at like 4:20. My husband was like, "What happened?" Like,
We
we
were
were
talking.
talking. There was lots of questions. Anyway, thank you, ladies and Fern, for showing up
Yes.
today.
Yep. Thank you.
And I'm serious that if you have any ideas about an event or thing I can do at the end in May, um, let me know. Like if you have an idea of a fun activity, and just keep the
Oh,
date in mind. Because I'm gonna wait for the end because Queen doesn't finish until the 10th. The big either voice chat or whatever we do that'll be on Sunday the 15th of May. So it'll be a week later than usual in terms of our voice chat, but that means that then the book is done and it's had a few days for people to catch up if they can't read it on the night that it finishes. So then hopefully we're not giving anybody spoiler alerts. So yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions. And everybody take care. And thank you for still reading all of my books.
Thank you for hosting this chat.
You're very welcome. And I'm just typing exactly the same thing to Sophia because she said that in the text chat. Um, yeah, this is my joy. You guys know that. We've been doing this a while now. Can you believe that? We've been doing this since June last year. Isn't that crazy? I
Was
think
that
we've,
your first voice chat?
well, I did the summer spoiler party. That was the first one that we did. Citrus
Yeah.
organized it.
Okay, because I was
And
there for that.
while we were there, or right after, because everybody enjoyed it, um, we were discussing doing it on a more regular basis. And Citrus
Hmm.
organized that we would do it the second Sunday of the month every month. And the only
Okay.
one that we've skipped since then was last month.
Wow. Then I've been doing this every
I
time
was going to
with
say,
you
I
guys.
think you and Rachel and no, it would just be you and Rachel, I think, have been at all of them, which
Yeah.
is crazy. I need to finish like a Beast Awards just specifically for you guys. Anyway, I gotta go. I'm sorry, but I appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you hopefully in just a few weeks. Again.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll see you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Fern.